Have you ever felt that wonderful sense of security knowing that you have a pension waiting for you in retirement? Maybe you've spent decades working for the same company or government agency, watching your pension benefits accumulate, telling yourself that you're one of the lucky ones who won't have to worry about running out of money in retirement. Unlike all those poor souls gambling their futures on 401k plans, you've got a guaranteed check coming every month for the rest of your life. You can practically hear that mailbox opening already, can't you? Well, I hate to be the one to burst your bubble, but that pension you're counting on might not be nearly as safe as you think it is. My name is Roshan, and today I'm going to share some uncomfortable truths about pension plans that most people discover way too late to do anything about it. The pension system in America is facing a crisis that nobody wants to talk about, and millions of workers who think they're set for retirement are going to get a very rude awakening. If you want to know whether your pension is actually secure or if you need to start building a backup plan immediately, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because what I'm about to tell you might be the difference between a comfortable retirement and a financial disaster. Let's start with something that should terrify anyone who's counting on a pension. According to recent data, public pension plans in America are underfunded by trillions of dollars. And I'm not using trillions as hyperbole. These pension systems have promised benefits that they literally don't have the money to pay. They're running at deficits so massive that it makes your credit card balance look like pocket change. State and local government pension plans alone face an unfunded liability of somewhere between $1.3 trillion and $4 trillion, depending on whose numbers you believe. The range is so wide because pension accounting is deliberately opaque, which should tell you everything you need to know about how confident these systems are in their own solvency. Think about what underfunded actually means in practical terms. It means the pension system has made promises to pay you a certain amount every month in retirement, but when they look at their bank accounts and investment portfolios, they don't have enough money to keep those promises. They're hoping that future investment returns will make up the difference, or that they can reduce benefits, or that someone will bail them out. But hope is not a financial strategy, and betting your retirement on hope is a terrible idea. Here's the thing that makes this situation even scarier. Private sector pensions, the ones offered by corporations, are in even worse shape than public pensions. According to consulting firm Milliman, corporate pension plans are underfunded by hundreds of billions of dollars. Major companies that you've heard of, companies that seem rock solid and have been around forever, are running pension plans that don't have nearly enough money to pay all their promised benefits. Some of these companies are counting on stock market gains to bail them out. Others are counting on being able to reduce benefits or freeze their plans before the money runs out completely. The second reason your pension isn't as safe as you think is that pension accounting is designed to hide problems until it's too late to fix them. When a pension fund reports that it's 80% funded, that sounds pretty good, right? You're thinking they've got 80% of what they just need to make up a small gap. Except that 80% figure is based on assumptions that are often wildly optimistic. Pension funds get to assume they'll earn 7 or 8% returns on their investments every year forever. They get to use discount rates that make their future liabilities look smaller than they really are. They get to smooth out investment losses over multiple years so a bad year doesn't show up immediately in the funding ratio. It's like if you could do your personal budget by assuming you'll get a 10% raise every year. Your car will never need repairs, and you'll win the lottery at least once. Your budget would look great on paper, but it would have nothing to do with reality. That's essentially what pension accounting allows. And by the time the real numbers catch up to the fantasy numbers, the pension fund is already in deep trouble and it's too late for small fixes. Here's a perfect example of how this plays out. In the early 2000s, many pension funds reported being overfunded. They had more money than they needed to pay all their promised benefits. Companies even took pension holidays where they stopped contributing because the funds looked so healthy. Then 2008 happened. The stock market crashed, investment returns disappeared, and suddenly these overfunded pensions were deeply underwater. But because of pension accounting rules, it took years for the full extent of the damage to show up in official reports. By the time workers realized their pensions were in trouble, the damage was already done.
The third reason your pension isn't safe is that the rules can change at any time, and there's very little you can do about it. You might have been promised a certain benefit when you were hired, but that promise isn't as ironclad as you think. Companies can freeze pension plans, meaning you stop earning additional benefits even if you keep working. They can change the formula for calculating benefits. They can require you to work longer before you're eligible for full benefits. State and local governments can reduce cost of living adjustments or change retirement ages. In some cases, benefits that you've already earned can be reduced if the pension fund is in bad enough shape. This happened to thousands of Teamsters union members whose pension benefits were cut by 30% or more when their multi-employer pension plan faced insolvency. These weren't benefits they hadn't earned yet. These were benefits they had already accrued through decades of work. And the government allowed those benefits to be slashed because the alternative was the entire pension plan collapsing and everyone getting nothing. If you're thinking that your pension is protected by law and can't be touched, you need to understand something important. The laws protect the pension system, not necessarily your specific benefits. When a pension fund is failing, the priority is keeping the system alive, even if that means cutting individual benefits. Federal law does provide some protections through the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, which ensures private sector pensions, but those protections have limits that might shock you. The fourth reason your pension isn't as safe as you think is that the insurance that's supposed to protect your pension is itself in financial trouble. The Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, or PBGC, is supposed to step in when private sector pension plans fail and make sure retirees still get their benefits. Sounds great, right? Except the PBGC itself is running a deficit. The agency that's supposed to rescue failing pensions doesn't have enough money to cover all the pensions it's already taken over, let alone new failures. And even if the PBGC does take over your failed pension, the benefits you receive are capped at much lower levels than you were probably expecting. In 2025, the maximum annual benefit the PBGC will pay is around $75,000 for someone retiring at age 65. If your pension was supposed to pay you $100,000 per year, too bad. You're getting $75,000 maximum, and that's if you're lucky. For younger retirees, the caps are even lower. This is another one of those details buried in the fine print that nobody thinks about until it's too late. For public sector pensions, there's no PBGC protection at all. If your state or local government pension plan fails, there's no federal insurance backing it up. Some states have their own insurance mechanisms, but many don't. The assumption is that governments can't go bankrupt and will always find a way to pay their obligations, except we've seen cities like Detroit and Stockton go bankrupt, and when they did, pension benefits were absolutely on the chopping block. The fifth reason your pension isn't as safe as you think is that pension funds are making increasingly risky investments to try to hit their unrealistic return targets, and these bets could backfire spectacularly. Remember those 7% and 8% return assumptions I mentioned earlier? To hit those targets in today's low interest rate environment, pension funds can't just buy safe government bonds anymore. They have to take serious risks. They're investing in private equity, hedge funds, real estate, commodities, and all sorts of complex investments that most people don't understand. When these risky bets pay off, the pension fund looks like a genius and the funding gap shrinks temporarily. But when these bets go wrong, the losses can be catastrophic. And here's the problem. The people making these investment decisions have very different incentives than the workers counting on these pensions. When the investments work out, the fund managers get bonuses and accolades. When the investments blow up, they still get paid, and it's the retirees who suffer the consequences. I've seen pension funds invest in everything from cryptocurrency to subprime mortgages to complex derivatives that even the fund managers didn't fully understand. They're essentially gambling with your retirement security, and you have zero say in how aggressive or conservative they should be. You're just supposed to trust that they know what they're doing and hope it works out. That's not security, that's a hope and a prayer. The sixth reason your pension isn't as safe as you think is the demographic reality. Pension systems were designed in an era when people worked for 40 years and then lived maybe 10 or 15 years in retirement. The math worked because you had lots of active workers contributing to the system to support a smaller number of retirees. But demographics have changed dramatically. People are living 25 or 30 years in retirement now. Birth rates have declined, so there are fewer workers coming up to replace retirees. And many pension systems are mature, meaning they have more retirees collecting benefits than active workers contributing. This creates a death spiral for pension funds. When you have more money going out in benefits than coming in from contributions and investment returns, you have to start selling assets to make payments. This reduces the size of the fund, which means lower future investment returns, which means you have to sell more assets, which reduces the fund further. Eventually, you run out of assets and the pension plan collapses.
We're watching this happen in slow motion with multiple pension systems across the country. Some government pension systems are trying to fix this by requiring current workers to contribute more while getting reduced benefits. So you're being asked to pay more into a system that's already underfunded to bail out promises made to previous generations, and you'll get less in return for your contributions. It's a raw deal, but the alternative is watching the whole system collapse. This is what happens when pension math collides with demographic reality.
The seventh reason your pension isn't safe is that it's vulnerable to economic and political factors completely outside your control. If the economy crashes and investment returns disappear for several years, pension funds can quickly go from troubled to catastrophic. If interest rates stay low for extended periods, pension funds can't earn enough on their safe investments. If your employer goes bankrupt, your pension could be terminated even if it was healthy before the bankruptcy. Political factors matter even more for public pensions. State and local governments facing budget pressures have been known to skip or reduce their required pension contributions. They kick the can down the road, figuring it's some future politician's problem to solve. But every year they underfund the pension, the hole gets deeper and harder to fill. And when the crisis finally hits, it's retirees who suffer. We've seen this movie play out in places like Illinois, New Jersey, and Kentucky, where years of underfunding and poor investment returns have created pension crises that have no easy solutions. Benefits are being cut, retirement ages are being raised, and workers who did everything right are discovering their promised pensions aren't worth what they thought. And these aren't isolated cases. They're warnings of what's coming for pension systems across the country. The eighth and final reason your pension isn't as safe as you think is that you have almost no transparency or control over your own retirement security. With a 401k, you can log in anytime and see exactly how much money you have and how it's invested. You can make changes if you're not comfortable with the investment strategy. You can increase contributions or adjust your allocations. You have information and agency. With a pension, you're completely at the mercy of people you've never met making decisions you don't understand about investments you can't see. Most pension participants get an annual statement showing their projected benefits, and that's it. They have no idea if the pension fund is well managed or poorly managed. They don't know if the assumptions behind those projections are reasonable or delusional. They can't see the fund's investment holdings or performance. They're just supposed to trust that everything is fine and their benefits will be there when they retire. And not blind trust is exactly what makes pension participants so vulnerable when things go wrong. So what should you do if you have a pension and you're now terrified that it's not as secure as you thought? First, don't panic, but do take this seriously. Request information about your pension fund's funding status. Look for independent analyses of your pension system's health. If you're in a public pension, check if your state has been consistently making its required contributions or if it's been skipping payments. If you're in a private pension, look up your company's pension funding status in their annual financial reports. Second, don't count on your pension being your only source of retirement income. Even if your pension is relatively healthy, you should be building additional retirement savings through a 401k, IRA, or taxable investment accounts. Diversify your retirement income sources so you're not completely dependent on a pension that might not deliver what it's promising. This is especially critical if you're young and retirement is decades away, because that's plenty of time for a pension crisis to unfold. Third, pay attention to warning signs. If your pension gets frozen or your employer stops contributing, that's a red flag. If benefits get cut for current retirees, that's a signal that active workers should prepare for similar cuts. If your pension fund's investment returns are consistently falling short of targets, the funding gap is growing, even if official reports don't show it yet. Don't wait until your pension is in full crisis mode before you start preparing alternatives. Fourth, consider whether you should take a lump sum buyout if your pension offers one. Some pension plans give you the option to take a one-time lump sum payment instead of monthly benefits. This can be attractive if you're worried about the pension's long-term stability. You'll have control over the money and can invest it yourself. But this decision is complicated and depends on many factors, including your age, health, the size of the lump sum, and your ability to manage investments. Get professional advice before making this choice. The bottom line is this: pensions are facing a perfect storm of underfunding, unrealistic assumptions, demographic challenges, and economic pressures. Some pensions will survive and continue paying full benefits. Others will require bailouts or benefit cuts, and some will fail entirely, leaving retirees with much less than they were promised.
The tragedy is that most pension participants won't know which category their pension falls into until it's too late to build a backup plan. Your pension might turn out to be perfectly fine, but betting your entire retirement security on that hope without building any alternatives is financial roulette. The smart move is to assume your pension will pay you less than promised and plan accordingly. If it pays full benefits, you'll have more retirement income than expected, which is a nice problem to have. But if it doesn't deliver, you'll have protected yourself instead of becoming another victim of the pension crisis. Your pension isn't as safe as you think, but now you know, and knowing gives you time to do something about it.